At the time of this video's release, it will have been 25 years since the pilot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. 25 years, during which the best urban fantasy series of all time has existed. This series managed to stretch its somewhat simple premise to its absolute narrative and conceptual breaking point. And it did so by exploring a wide variety of themes revolving around alienation, self-discovery, responsibility, and adulthood in a whole slew of ways, while also being very thrilling, very thrilling, very engaging, very intriguing, and also very funny. It is actually quite hard to say just how much pop culture owes to this series, which is very much an institution in and of itself. The hype you might have heard about it is very much real, and it is very much based in truth. This was incidentally, I think, the first piece of pop culture that I've heard has academia dedicated specifically to exploring its themes and how it explores them. It is that much of an influence and a powerhouse within modern culture, and not just pop culture, but really all of culture. As such, I wanted to say something about my appreciation of it. I could talk about each individual episode and go season by season and episode by episode about what makes all of them good, but there already are channels about that are specifically dedicated to that. So instead, I'm going to talk about my top 10 Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes. My reference point for this list is BuffyGuide.com, and I also have an unofficial rule that two-parters count as one episode. And because my reference is BuffyGuide.com, whatever BuffyGuide.com says is a two-parter counts as a two-parter. So if you disagree with that, I'm sorry. Before I get into the actual list, I have to say that because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is such a dense and varied series, it is likely that your top 10 will look very different from mine, which is absolutely okay. When it comes to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, there are a few episodes that pretty much everyone agrees are absolutely amazing and deserve to be talked about forever. And when it comes to literally every other episode, it varies from it's bad but it still has heart, from it's bad but it still has heart to it is actually still very interesting and still worth your attention. So yeah, it is likely that even a top 20 or a top 50 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer will not be an exhaustive list of everything that exemplifies everything that makes Buffy good. As such, if you have disagreements, well, I'm sorry, you'll have to expect that. That being said, let's get on with the list. I have it saved right here. At number 10, we have Family, early season 5. And as far as I'm aware, this is the first episode that really explores Tara's backstory. She has up until this point in the series been a regular of the main cast, which I refuse to call Scooby Gang for my own reasons, for about a year or half a year, and up until now, she has been a quiet and mature support pillar of the existing cast. Today, in this episode, we find out exactly what makes her so quiet, what makes her so eager to cling to them and support them. This episode, as its title might give away, explores family dynamics, both birth families and families of choice, families that you build yourself, or if you prefer, families you grow out of and compare them to families you grow into. It is heart-wrenching. It is at times a very difficult watch, but it is at the same time uplifting and uh, uh, and ultimately exciting to watch and interesting to ponder. For that, it receives a number 10 spot. At number 9, Conversations with Dead People, the only season 7 episode. Season 7 is controversial for a wide variety of reasons I won't go into, but this episode in particular of season 7 is, I will say, quite interesting. It is structured around 3 conversations. One of them between Buffy and a vampire who helps her psychoanalyze herself. Another one with Willow and the ghost of someone the main cast has had lost recently, and a third one between a villain from a previous season and the ghost of a villain from a previous season, or at least that's what that particular manifestation manifests as. This episode, from a principle standpoint, is quite simple, but it explores some very interesting ideas in a novel way. A novel way that is still very exciting and very enticing for the audience. But what really makes it stand out is the fact that it, first of all, sets up one of the main storylines for the season moving forward, and also marks the first face-to-face confrontation between a member of the main cast and the main villain of the season. So yeah, it is basically a setup episode, but it is the best example of a setup episode that Buffy the Vampire Slayer has. And for that, it reaches number 9. At number 8, let me just check here. We're going back a bit in time to season 4. The I-In team. Up until this point in season 4, it has been established that there is a paramilitary presence in Sunnydale, the city where the town where Buffy the Vampire Slayer takes place, and this paramilitary organization is established as having an interest in the supernatural. And therefore the question on both sides, both the main cast and the paramilitary people, is, can we work together? The last episode was a setup episode. This episode is a shit hits the fan episode. It's where we find out how the paramilitary organization works in a greater detail, and how that contrasts with the style that the main characters employ. When you also add to it the twist ending that establishes a new threat for the end of the season, it becomes that much more impactful. At least in the moment, because afterwards, yeah, it's kind of a mess, but it's not really a mess for any fault it carries. Rather, it kind of didn't know how to carry over what was already established. Oh well. Still, this episode is amazing and absolutely worthy of the number 8 spot. At number 7, we got... Why did I forget the title? Oh yeah. Once More with Feeling, the musical episode. The one every cast member who had by then left the series always say they wanted to be a part of. This is not just a musical episode, but a very well done example of the music episode, where every character, when not only does every character sing their motivation, they all have their own distinctive styles in which they sing. They sing styles which reflect both their personalities and their personal struggles. It is quite interesting to behold that variety and that level attention to where every character is in that particular point within the season's arc. It was very fun to follow, and I and I am and I stand impressed by his achievements. So for that reason, it's a number 7. At number 6, going back to season 4, we have the finale of season 4, Restless. This episode takes place in the dreams of the core cast, and in doing so, we explore their own ideas, their own drives, their own conceptions of the world and the situations around them, but also their own personal mythologies, their own personal symbols by which they guide themselves, and their own personal and very distinctive approaches to the situations at hand. It is very interesting to watch, and especially to rewatch. There is a lot of variety and a lot of very immersive content that is being told, or rather presented, through this episode. And yeah, another great episode. What can I say? Worthy of number 6. At number 5, we have Surprise / Innocence. Two-parter as per Buffy Guide, so therefore it counts as one episode. Therefore it belongs on this list. This is another Shit Hits the Fan episode, but it is different from other Shit Hits the Fan episodes in that because not only does it establish a new villain, it does so by turning an existing member of the main cast into the main villain. A main villain who therefore has all of the insights necessary to take down the main cast, and who has been established as being very ruthless and formidable in a whole bunch of ways you don't want your enemy to be formidable in. While we don't see all of that in this episode, we see the seeds of that in the first episode, and it very much establishes the kind of heartbreak that you will see throughout the entire rest of the series. For that reason, it is very much worthy of the number 5 spot. At number 4, we have The Body. Yeah, back to season 5 and back to this episode. This episode is an exploration of grief, as we see one of the secondary characters who has had the longest tenure on the show pass away, and we see how all of the main characters are dealing with the passing, how their anguish is reflected in their own ideas and concepts about death. This episode is presented in a very raw, very intimate, very personal way, and I have to applaud the series for being not necessarily that brave, but also that consistent in exploring a topic like this in a manner this blunt and this direct. It does something very simple, but it does so in a very deliberate very deliberate way that absolutely sticks with you. Because of that, this episode very much deserves the number 4 spot. Before I get into the top 3, I have to say, while I was putting the list together, I actually kind of surprised myself when I saw which episodes ended up in which places. However, when it came to my top 3, I always knew not only what they would be, but also the order they would be in. And at number 3, we have Graduation Day, parts 1 and 2, the finale of season 3. Season 3 is widely recognized as the best Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode season, and I have to say I pretty much agree with that. It and this season, while it doesn't really represent everything that is good about it, is a culmination of the best elements about it. It represents one of the main. It represents a conclusion of one of the main storylines of the episode concerning the main cast. It also marks the brutal ending of Buffy's main rivalry throughout the season, and it also concludes the storyline involving this season's main villain, which, yeah, was very interesting to behold in its own in its own particular way, and I very much enjoyed it. Not just it in and of itself, but also all of the all of the setup that went into it. Also the conclusion, as in the final scene, was very thrilling to behold. And for all of these reasons, Graduation Day gets the number 3 spot. And number 2, what I'm pretty sure will be the most controversial placement on this list, Two to Go and Grave, the season 6 finale. Season 6 is another one of the controversial seasons, and for the most part, I have to say, I agree with. I kind of see where the controversy is coming from, but I still think these episodes, or rather this episode, because 2-part counts as one, is still amazing, and it represents the ultimate conclusion of the story arc of the season, which represents, in many ways, corruption, and it represents going through it and deciding and knowing when to stop, or how to handle your own personal corruption. It is a very valuable lesson for anyone to observe, especially people at that age. I was actually at the age of the characters were supposed to be when I first saw the series, and this season stuck with me in a way almost no other did. And it is that for this reason that season 6 overall is my second favorite season. And these 2 episodes in particular really stick the landing when it comes to delivering that particular message and those particular themes. And it manages to do so while also being extremely thrilling and extremely action-packed. These 2 episodes just throw everything at the main cast, who have to struggle absolutely heroically against every single odd that can be thrown against them. And it is such a thrill and such a joy to behold. It's amazing. For that reason, this episode goes all the way to number 2. At number 1, drum roll, it's Hush. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is what everyone was expecting, but for my money, Hush is the best episode that Buffy the Vampire Slayer ever put out. It is a one-off episode, so it doesn't really explore the theme in any particular depth. But still, what it does within its episode, let me check the time quickly. Okay, what it does within its episode is still absolutely amazing. It explores a very particular topic in a very varied way. Does a lot of very interesting things with this very peculiar topic, including exploring the dichotomy between between the friend and foe and various organizations within the story, and it manages to do so while also being thrilling, frightening, action-packed, intriguing, and funny. This is everything that makes Buffy good in a nutshell. It is